Well, welcome, my friends, to another incredible episode of Purpose Driven Progress. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Hicks, and I got to tell you guys, I got a really fun one for you today. So I'm bringing on Miles Brazan-Harmon. He's a seasoned brand strategist, actor, and entrepreneur. Throughout his career, Miles has spearheaded campaigns with the NFL, Ulta Beauty, and Amazon. Currently, he's producing a slate of original projects with an emphasis on cultural storytelling across the fashion and entertainment industries. His passion for bridging culture and e-commerce drives his work. Miles is also a health and wellness enthusiast who enjoys completing home improvement projects and perfecting new recipes. In 2020, he launched the creative production, publishing, and image management company, Mogul Money World, which sets out to redefine media in the modern age. Miles, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, so we're stoked to have you, man. So, gosh, we got a ton to unpack there from, NFL, Amazon, Ulta. So, kind of walk us through, your story a little bit. How did you go from, doing like working with some crazy big brands like that to, opening your own production company?
Yeah, I got bit by the entrepreneur bug quite early.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
both of my parents are career entrepreneurs. My mom in financial services, my dad in home and construction. So I got my start as a web developer, building out websites for D2C brands, so a few consumer package brands, wealth services. And from there, it kind of just evolved. You don't really realize uh, that you're doing something until someone's like, "Oh, this is good. Like this is actually you have a knack and a talent for it." And I've always been someone where I like to say I have the DIY mentality. So
Yeah.
if I can figure out how to do it, I'm going to figure out how to do it. So from there, I just started scaling. And once we got into the corporate world, I started working in cosmetics. So that's when I really started getting into it with the brand partnerships and influencer marketing and really seeing how the teams work at a larger scale. And there I was able to do some really amazing work with the teams at Ulta, working with Superdrug over across the pond in the UK. And then after I left the private equity I was working for in-house, I transitioned to working at Roc Nation, which is the agency founded by Sean J.C. Carter, working specifically on their fashion vertical Paper Planes. Working with them, I also was able to work across the agency catalog a bit, doing things for GovBall in New York City, Douce Champagne. I was helping the few activations that they were having there. And of course, the Roc Nation has the partnership with the NFL. And so with Paper Planes, we also did a few NFL collabs. So getting to work with a few of the teams there. And once my tenure at Roc Nation was over, Roc Nation was kind of a career highlight for me. It was something where it was something that was always on my goal list. And after leaving, I kind of really sat back and I was like, okay, I've kind of hit all these benchmarks very quickly, I might add. And I really needed a reset. And I had these agency contacts and all of the people I had met while working in corporate. And it just made sense to sort of just take the leap and have faith in myself and have faith in the freelancers I was working with at the time and just really try to break bread with my ecosystem. So that's sort of how Mogul Money World came about, from working in music to working with fashion brands. And now we're running, up and running.
I love it, man. I love it. So, tell us a little bit more about that because Mogul Money World, like, it's really about telling, like, storytelling, right? Especially like brand and cultural storytelling that's not maybe doesn't get as many eyes as normal, right? So, what kind of drew you to that space in the first place?
Growing up in Chicago, I think seeing the culture that we have. If you're from Chicago, you like, yeah, we live in Illinois, but we don't consider ourselves Illinoisans. Like you are a
Yeah. Yep.
Chicagoan, like Shy City, like this is our like we consider ourselves our own slice of the world, if that makes sense. So
100%.
having that rich pride and a lot of our ancestors and our grandparents, they're from down south. So we're raised with those deep Southern cultural values and you go into these rooms and you're working with all these teams and you sort of are in this bubble, if that makes sense, where things that you're not really on the ground and working with the actual consumer and the customer. It's not so facing, you're coming up with
Yeah.
all these big ideas and hoping that it resonates. And, when I had the chance to actually talk to our audiences and hear their perspective about the work that we were doing, it clicked for me where I kind of needed to take another approach to it, and especially where everyone's sort of entrepreneur driven now in the gig start economy, and everyone's trying to find their own way in their own lane. And I wanted to set my production house and my agency apart where, it's not necessarily just about us trying to hit KPIs and make money. It's about really making impactful work that resonates with them. So it's knowing their pain points, what drives you as a consumer, because when you're going to make a purchase, it's not just, you're not, you can just buy it, but what's really driving that buy? What are you going through? And making work that really serves them, not just on a superficial level, but something that really sticks with them, having something in your home, or even just when you listen to music and it's that feeling that you have. And so the work that we're doing right now is really trying to tap into that feeling and tap into the ethos of what it is to really be human in this digital age where we're connected as ever, but we're still not connected in a personal level. We're wearing these curated faces and these curated masks of who we want people to think we are, and even to a certain degree, we're manifesting who we are in the digital space. And I wanted to peel back a lot of those layers. So a lot of the work that we're doing now is really peeling back those layers and getting to the root of like what bridges us together as humanity. And, how do we create a culture that celebrates us through the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Well, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot that goes into these kind of productions, right? Into the storytelling to make it authentic. So, for anybody out there listening that maybe, they're working on their social media, or they're working
Mm,
on, like just their like how they're representing themselves and telling their story, right?
mm.
Do you have like any like tips or insight into like how do I, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson or whatever,
Mm.
how do I lead authentically, and how do I show up authentically for like my clients or my customers?
I would say be in it for the long game. Like
Mm-hmm.
even when I consult and even acquire new customers, I really like to sit down with founders and teams and get to the root, what do you want this to look like in 10, 15 years? And even in the social landscape where it's always changing, but what do you want to stay? It's one thing to come up with products and say, okay, this is going to be the messaging, but how do we translate that? How do we really tie in? And that's why, like, I named Mogul Money. It was originally just Mogul Money. And then I was like, we're going to tack world on there just for not only branding purposes, but how do we really create an ethos? Something for people
Mm-hmm.
to hold on to, where even if they're not clicking purchase or buying what we're selling, they feel a part of a movement. So I would say making a movement, making something that you want to last outside of just this moment. Playing the long game is always key in marketing, because even when you think of brands like Calvin Klein and you think of the transition over history, and even having those brand hallmarks that you can sort of go back to, because a lot of what's going on now with the marketing landscape, people are pulling from nostalgia. They're going back into their archives and looking at these old campaigns and saying, okay, how can we pull from this, but then incorporate it with the new school and translate it for digital? So creating pillars for your brand that 10, 20 years from now, you'll look back and be like, okay, we're gonna bring this back out of the archive and let's add something new to it.
I love that, man. I love that. Well, I totally agree with you. And I'm really curious. I want to go off script here a little bit, if you don't
Hmm.
mind. Because like in my, in my coaching practice, especially, like I've worked with,
Hmm.
salespeople and entrepreneurs, and this in my experience, and it's like some of the experience of my, colleagues and my peers too. A lot of people, and I think it's true in entrepreneurship especially, but a lot of people
Hmm.
just, they don't exactly know where they're going, right? And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about. Like we were talking about the long game. It's like, hey, in 5 years,
Hmm.
what do you really want to be doing? Like, what is your life? Like, what do you
Hmm.
want your life to look like? And I feel like so many people in like, in the business world, they just,
Hmm.
like you said, they're trying to hit KPIs and stuff, right? Which is important. Like you got to,
Absolutely.
try to be hitting numbers and, driving towards goals. But
Hmm.